Welcome to another CoH2 replay cast. This time we're going to have a 2v2 on Road to Kharkov. And as you can see, we're going to have some USF action today. We're going to have double USF, Grunt, 1171, and Angry Letterneck. Welcome to... going to be playing as the USF, of course. And on the enemy team, we're going to have two OKWs, so Western Front Army's Showdown match, Pop-Tarts for Breakfast, and Bill. Now, I'm not really sure who sent in the replay. So, yeah, because in the email there wasn't really said who sent in the replay, but I'm guessing it was either one of these people. Maybe, I don't know. 1 second, let me check. It might actually be the Germans playing. I don't think so, though. I'm pretty sure it's the Americans. No, actually, it's the OKW player. Okay, so it's Pop-Tarts for Breakfast that sent in the replay. Okay, so we're going to be following mostly him. We have already 3 doctrine selections from the get-go. We have a second Storm Pioneer squad from Pop-Tarts. Now that is very interesting, and I don't completely agree with this decision on this map, because on this map it is much better to, just in general, go for long-range units than short-range. Storm Pioneer is very useful at short-range, but on this map there's very much a long-range focus. As you can see throughout the entire map, there is a lot of open space. It is very hard to get into close range with Storm Pioneers, but if you manage to do that, of course, you will do a lot of damage. So we'll see how Pop-Tarts uses these units to the best of their effect. And that will definitely determine the outcome of some of these engagements that we will see, hopefully soon. We have some pretty standard capping order coming in from both players. I don't really see anything too weird happening right now, especially because of the fact that the second Storm Pioneer kind of delayed the second unit coming out for Pop-Tarts. And we do have an engagement in the center. We have a couple of riflemen pushing up from both players. We also have some rear echelons capturing the central VP without any kind of issue, because there's only one Storm Pioneer squad that is ready to contest the VP. But we also have a Cubewagon from Bill. Bill going for 2 Storm Pioneers as well. The second one only just coming out, though. He's floating a lot of manpower, so he really should get going with some kind of unit. We do have 2 Volkspioneer squads from Pop-Tarts, which is definitely a good choice. We'll see if these Storm Pioneers can win this engagement against these riflemen, and it looks like they will be able to repel the riflemen and possibly even wipe the squad. So that was a very good play. Getting a nice pickup in the early game would be very useful. Now we have 2 rifleman squads pushing up to the yellow cover over here, but there's 3 Storm Pioneers ready to fight them. Now they will charge in at close range, but there's 1 Storm Pioneer that goes down, and the second Storm Pioneer squad is very much troubled. The other one is taking a lot of damage from these Emerald Garans, and they will be forced to retreat likely very soon, especially from this reinforcement squad over here from the Americans. Now, we also have an MG34 from the Fortifications Doctrine. Fortifications Doctrine, of course, very good to hold down a sector as the OKW because of the Pack 43, the bunkers, and the MG34, which are pretty much the features that most people use from the Doctrine. But of course, zeroing artillery is also a really powerful strike. If you can manage to get the munitions and keep the line of sight going as the artillery strike goes down, you will be able to do a lot of damage. The shells that are dropped are very much dangerous. It drops pretty much more shells than any other artillery strike in the game, so that's why you use it. Now, we also have Luftwaffe ground forces being selected by Bill, so we have 2 fairly similar doctrines, both with the MG34, both with the heavy fortifications that allow the Storm Pioneers to place down the flak emplacements and the trenches. So that is very nice for the OKW to hold on territory, especially the MG. I don't really like the flak emplacement, but some people do like to use it. We'll see if these OKW players do make use of it. Now we also have a supply half-track already being brought out by Bill. Now we're going to see where he places that, and of course which of the 2 supply half-tracks he decides to actually get. Now the Americans did go for a fuel cache over here in the south, but we have the cutoff from Bill, so that was a good play by Bill, sending in his Storm Pioneers to cut off the point, and just managing to cut off the fuel flow for the Americans. Gonna very much get the resource advantage in the early game, but we'll see if they can continue to maintain the resource advantage, as we do have a a little bit of a push in the north by the Americans. Americans going for already BARs on their riflemen, which is definitely a good choice. The BARs are very important, but maybe perhaps for Grunt, it would have been better to wait and get the M1919 machine guns, as he does have the infantry company selected. That allows them to get the M1919s, which for only 10 more munitions than BARs nets you a very nice weapon that is better than the BAR and is also pretty much, well, doesn't require any upgrades on the part of the HQ. Now, we have a mortar half-track being called on by him. Now, the mortar half-track is a pretty decent artillery for the Americans, but only because the Americans really lacking other kind of artillery. Now, we do have a Star Pioneer squad being wiped, and this is a little bit of a reckless charge against free rifleman squads. Possibly the second Star Pioneer squad will also go down. No, very lucky to escape with one guy left and pretty much no HP. We also have a bit of a push from the Americans in the center with a captain supporting, and also the mortar half-track against the little bit of a barricade over here that the Germans decide to build. Looks like the mortar half-track will be able to at least deal some decent damage to it. Now, we also have a bit of an attempted push by the Americans, but they will be stopped by this machine gun, nicely placed in the house by the fuel point, which is going to be very good for the Germans, as they do need to keep that fuel point under control. Now, unfortunately, they're making a mistake. As you can see, they're kind of leaving this area cut off because of this road point that the Americans managed to snatch. So this will be very important for the Germans to actually send a unit to recapture. As you can see, Bill is making this maneuver with his Sturm Pioneers, which is good. Now, we do have the battle group headquarters being positioned by Bill in a not too great position. I would have positioned it about over here. And the reasoning for that is because over here it only helps Bill if he's fighting on the left side of the map, whereas if the battle group headquarters was positioned over here, it would help both players fighting on all sides of the map, with the more central location being very crucial to that placement. Now, of course, the other position that he could have chosen to go for was in the middle of the base, as that provides a much more secure location for the HQ, which means that it will not pretty much never be destroyed by enemy fire, and it will also service both players as their units retreat. With the HQ in the middle of the base, you will be able to heal out both players with their units without any kind of micro required. Now, we do have the MG44 pushing up and trying to deal a lot of damage to this fuel cache. Angry Leatherneck has gone for a lot of fuel caches, but we also have the fact that there's the mortar half-track pretty much peppering this house, almost destroying it with the machine gun inside. So that was good for Pop-Tarts to actually manage to get out of the house as soon as possible and avoiding its destruction. Now, in the center, the Germans have managed to get a nice, very nice defensive position, and also on the sort of the more bottom left side area, they've managed to pretty much fortify, and they will not be able to, the Americans will not be able to push through over here anytime soon. So the Americans are pretty much focusing on the north, which means that honestly, right now, if I was Bill and Pop-Tarts, I would be trying to coordinate a little bit of a push towards this northern area of the map. Now, we do have another Sturm Pioneer squad being lost. Again, these Sturm Pioneers can be very good at close range, but once the Americans do get the weapon upgrades, and if you're charging across the open field into a lot of units, they will pretty much suffer lots of casualties. Now, we do have Pop-Tarts going for a battle group headquarters of his own. I'm not really sure I completely agree with this decision. I would have gone for a mechanized to get out a Puma and a Stuka. The reasoning for this is that the Americans are playing very defensively with their infantry on the northern side of the map, and a Stuka would be very nice to avoid the Americans hunkering down into one of these areas too heavily, and also the Puma would be really good to counter the Stuarts and perhaps also the mortar half-track. As you can see, very light vehicle can be easily countered by the Puma. Now, pretty good flank by the Americans in the center. They will be able to at least wipe out this one machine gun. That was the third machine gun from Pop-Tarts. He's got now two machine guns, two of them going down, one of them going down in the center. It's definitely not the best thing for him now. He really needs to retreat this one machine gun out of the house, but I don't think he will be able to. Another one machine gun goes down. I really do think that he should be working a little bit on his unit preservation. Now, we do have a Panzer squad on the field, which is definitely good. He will need to micro this one correctly to get it up to at least better in C4 or 5, just so that it's going to be very good against the riflemen as well. Now, we do have a bit of an American push in the center. They have managed to decrew this one MG44, and they really need to send a unit, especially these rear echelons, to go and capture this machine gun. You don't want to leave it to the enemy at all costs, pretty much. Any weapon team is very important to just secure. Now, we do have a Cuba wagon being pretty much pushed back by the Stuart, and the Stuart also dealing a lot of damage to this machine gun in the south. Going to be moving up with the riflemen's support, so it will not be that easy for the German infantry to come in and flank the Stuart. Now, we do have a nice support gun over here by Bill, doing a lot of damage to the riflemen, and also the riflemen are going to get wiped by the Volksgrenadier, so that was an excellent play by Bill. Support gun definitely paying for itself, getting out that wipe in a very spectacular fashion. Now, these Volksgrenadiers should definitely retreat as soon as possible. They will not be able to get out another shot, and if they do get another shot off, they will probably suffer the ultimate price for it, so they do retreat, just saving their own lives. Now, we do have a flak half-track being built by Pop-Tarts. Don't really completely agree with the decision because there are 2 Stuarts on the field already, and the Stuart is pretty much the counter to the flak half-track for the Americans. So you really don't want to be building into your own counter. Now, the 3rd machine gun also going down from the building. You definitely want to be very careful with your machine guns, as when you do position them into houses, especially wooden ones, you definitely want to get them out of the line of fire if they're starting to take in a lot of damage. Now, we do also have a ambulance and the pack howitzer on the field, or rather, still building from Grunt. The pack howitzer is going to be really useful to dislodge some of these German defensive positions. We do have a Rakenwerfer from Bill, who also went for a Puma, so him going for both the early structures, both the mechanized regiment and the battle group headquarters. Now, the Stuart is taking a lot of damage from the Rakenwerfer. The Rakenwerfer is going to get in the building. We also have the flak half-track going to be dealing a little bit of poking damage to the front armor of the Stuart. Of course, the flak half-track not exactly the most anti-armored unit in the game. But excellent long-range shot from the Rakenwerfer, dealing a lot of damage, or rather, doing just a finishing blow on the Stuart, which is really good. We do have 2 Stuarts by Angry Leatherneck. I definitely don't agree with this decision. There were already 2 Stuarts on the field, 1 from each American player, and you really don't need a 2nd Stuart to push in the south, especially because of the fact that the German AT units were really distracted between both areas of the map due to the fact that there was a Stuart on each flank. And because of this, pretty much the Puma is going to be able to counter these 2 Stuarts. One of them going down and being abandoned, so that's really bad. And the 2nd Stuart really needs to make something happen to destroy this one wreck. Especially with the captain, he could also do that. Now, the captain could also try to support the Stuart. Stuart not popping Shell Shock is definitely a mistake. The Stuart does have an ability called Shell Shock. In case you don't know, it's 45 munitions, and it causes the Stuart's shells to stun enemy vehicles. So that was definitely what you needed to do to counter that Puma over there that was attacking you. Now, on the northern side of the map, we do have a pretty huge engagement with some infantry, but yeah, pretty much the northern side of the map will still be in the direction of the Americans, but the pack howitzer is still on the field, rather starting to deal a lot of damage to the German support weapons. This is pretty much why you get the pack howitzer, and this is definitely really good that Grunt is making a good use of that unit, because it is very important to get that unit out on the field for the Americans once there are a lot of German defensive positions like these buildings occupied by Rakenwerfers and the support guns. Now, the Americans do have the superiority in fuel caches, but they don't have the superiority in fuel points because of the fact that Bill has still pretty much got this little cutoff point under his own clutches, and that's really good. It's pretty much allowed the Germans to have complete resource advantage. The Germans also had the complete BP advantage, but now the Americans have gone back with a little bit of a second wind and have managed to capture pretty much free BPs for a couple of minutes, which has equalized the situation a little bit for the Americans in terms of VP. Now, Bill getting out a Fallschirmjäger squad and sending it in a building is definitely not too good. You want your Fallschirmjägers to be as active as they could be. Now, we do have a 2nd Stuart by Grunt, so 4th Stuart in total for the Americans. That's definitely not a good decision in my opinion, because of the fact that the Americans really need be just making the best use possible of their limited fuel resources. They definitely want to try to take up as quickly as possible after getting the early game units like the Stuart. Pretty much they had their try with the Stuarts and they failed / succeeded in certain areas, but now it's time to move on to better units in the major tree, definitely, or maybe for Grunt, a Priest would be very good. Now, one thing for Angry Leatherneck is the fact that he went for Paratroopers. Paratroopers are really good at close range with the Thompsons and really good at long range with the LMGs, but they are very expensive to reinforce. So we'll see how he can use his own Paratroopers. Looks like he will fall in a second Paratrooper spot. He's lost all of his Riflemen, which is definitely not the best thing for him. Now, the Thompsons will definitely be able, as you can see, to pretty much massacre these Fallschirmjägers if they do not try to maintain distance. Fallschirmjägers are better at distance once Paratroopers are upgraded with Thompsons, but at close range the Thompsons do definitely win against the Fallschirmjägers. Now, pretty good defense of his own 50 cal. 50 cal almost being destroyed by the flank of the Storm Pioneers, but from the Paratroopers come in pretty much the save for the 50 cal. Now, we do have a good bazooka play from Angry Leatherneck. He will be able to easily destroy this flak half-track with the bazookas. That's really good. Now, Angry Leatherneck, he really needs to get out a major with his 120 fuel that he does have. He can go for the major. We do have a pretty huge push by Grunt. He will be able to deal a lot of damage against Pop-Tarts, pretty much destroying all of his units now. One thing that definitely Pop-Tarts should be working on is retreating his units much quicker, because I've noticed that he definitely doesn't retreat as quickly as he should with his units. He's lost 2 Volksgrenadier squads, 3 Storm Pioneers, I believe. Let me actually check in the graphics over here in units. He's lost 1 Volksgrenadier and 4 Storm Pioneers, so yeah, definitely needs to be retreating his units faster. When your units are at about 25%, it's always a good time to retreat, depending on the engagement, of course. Now, one thing that the Germans should definitely be doing is trying to salvage some of these wrecks that the Stuarts laid. Of course, from the Sturm Pioneers or the Volksgrenadiers, is definitely it's definitely going to be good for the Germans to get the salvage game on, as these 3 wrecks are pretty much. I'm not sure actually if they do get 5 or 12. No, I believe it's 12. So that would be 36 fuel for the Germans from these 3 wrecks, which is definitely not bad. I mean, it's nothing too great, but it's also nothing to scoff at. It's pretty much half of a Lux or half of a Puma. So yeah, that's why you definitely want to salvage. Now, they should also be capturing some of these support weapons that are lying around on the ground, especially the support gun and the MG34 in the center. Now, we do have a bit of a push with the Stuart and the American infantry. Now, the American infantry will be countered in time if Pop-Tarts can manage to recrew some of his support weapons. 2 machine guns will definitely stop this blob dead in its tracks, but we will see if he can do that in a timely manner. Nice push with the Puma, going to be destroying the 50 cal with that light vehicle. That is pretty much a pretty decent unit against machine guns because of the immunity suppression. Of course, we do have a named shot being used against the Stuart, but the Stuart is also dealing a lot of damage to the Puma. We do have shell shock, as you can see. It's going to stun the Puma. We also have a Rakettenwerfer pretty much supporting from the flanks, but we also have the captain pretty much finishing off the Puma. So we have a pretty interesting duel from these 2 light vehicles that pretty much concludes in the destruction of both of them. So we have an interesting conclusion to that, but yeah, pretty much no big loss for either team then. It's a pretty even trade. Now, there's nothing really too exciting going on, so I'll speed it up. We have a Fallschirmjäger assault, airborne assault by Bill. We'll see how that goes out. Now, he definitely needs to be very careful with these Fallschirmjägers. He's lost 1 of his squads already. He's called off another one. Fallschirmjäger spam is something that I've touched on a little bit in other casts, but I will touch on again. It's very important that you just don't waste Fallschirmjägers like that, because they're very expensive both in their munitions price and also in their manpower price. We do have a pretty bad idea over here with the blob cap by Grunt. You definitely don't want to be blob capping because it allows the enemy artillery an easy target on your infantry. We do also have a pretty huge blow to the Germans in the fact that the Americans do manage to capture this MG34. Now, Grunt hasn't really made any big choices with his teching. He's still he went for the major, but he still hasn't decided what he will go for afterwards. He also has the priest option available, as he is infantry company. We do also have another Fallschirmjäger assault by Bill. And again, this is pretty much what I was talking about. Like, the Fallschirmjägers, yes, they're good, but once you start spamming too many of them, it's not too good because they are very good when you're microing them individually, but if you do have too many of them, they become a little bit of a waste of resources, as they are very expensive to not only buy but also reinforce. Now, we do have a pretty big push by the Americans on the north, so definitely retreat these Volksgrenadiers before they are wiped. We'll be kind of lucky to survive, but just in time retreating is just good enough. We do also have a little bit of an artillery strike, it seems, by someone. We do have a flak emplacement being built by Bill in the south side of the map. Will definitely help him hold onto that area against any kind of harassment moves from the Americans. The Americans are definitely blobbing up a little bit too much. They are asking for a support gun shot to wipe them very mercilessly over here. They're being very lucky that these support guns are slightly missing the shots. The Fallschirmjägers will be able to run away, it seems, just fine. Even though, well, they were risking pretty much their own lives in this building, but yeah, they will be retreated just in time. We do have two paratroopers in the center. Now, again, paratrooper spam, it's just the same pretty much argument as the Fallschirmjäger spam. You don't want to be spamming too many paratroopers, as they're really good when microed individually, but when you have too many of them, you cannot micro them correctly, and you will end up just losing a lot of models that are very expensive and hard to reinforce. Now, we do have a Sherman on the field for Angry Leverneck. He will be able to deal a lot of damage to this flak emplacement, and he will probably be able to actually recruit it with one of his units if he can manage to send one to the south of the map. But we do also have a nice Vet 4 Volksgrenadier by Bill that will be able to propel this Sherman, along with a Panzer IV being built by Bill. Now, Bill went for, as the Stuart does a lot of damage to the north, Bill went for all of the buildings and then decided to go for a Panzer IV. I don't really agree with the decision. I would have much rather gone for a King Tiger instead of a Panzer IV, but we will see if we can make good use of that unit. It is definitely a good tank, but when you can go for a King Tiger in just 150 more fuel, I would definitely have gone for that. Now, we do have a bunker from Pop-Tarts. Will definitely help out his machine gun in holding to the center munitions point. A few Panzerschreck squads are on the field from Pop-Tarts, so he has rebuilt his infantry force, which is good. We do have the Pack Howitzer attacks against the battle group headquarters, which will deal a lot of damage against the battle group headquarters and probably destroy it very soon. Now, the OKW infantry will definitely need to retreat fairly soon if these Americans are not suppressed, and they will be suppressed by the Vet 2 machine gun just in time. We do have some incendiary grenades, very good usage of the incendiary grenades against the riflemen. Riflemen are going to be just retreating, but they will manage to call down a time-on-target artillery barrage on the battle group, and will probably destroy the battle group, because he should definitely his support gun. Support gun very lucky to live, but the battle group headquarters was not so fortunate. We do have a Panzer IV on the field from Bill. He will be pushing up and pretty much flanking this Stuart, going to be easily destroying it. We do have the Panzer IV going to be hidden back by the Sherman, and also by the bazookas of the captains that are over here. Two captains and also a few bazooka rifleman squads. Very lucky to escape with his own life. No, why aren't you running away? He will be pretty much just overstaying his welcome and eating one too many bazooka rounds from the American blob. So that was definitely a misplay by Bill. He could have definitely saved that Panzer IV in so many different ways, but he decided to be a little bit too reckless with his unit, which is definitely what you don't want to be doing when you have the advantage. Well, you don't want to be doing it ever, but when you have the advantage and you are throwing away your units, it's just definitely not good. Now, we do have a nice suppression over here from the MG34, which is up to about 2 and 7 kills. A second Panzer headquarters. A second headquarters is available to Pop-Tarts. We'll see what he decides to go for. I don't think he can go for a... No, can he go for a Panzer headquarters? I do believe he can, actually. Yeah, he might be able to get out a Panzer headquarters and also a battle group, or rather a mechanized artillery headquarters fairly soon, as he does have enough resources for a King Tiger even after the teching structures are subtracted. Of course, he will need to wait for his manpower. He has been taking a lot of manpower losses. He also went for a infrared half-track, which is definitely a good choice, as if we do turn on the Fog of War, we can see that once the infrared half-track decides to actually move around, he will be able to see all of these units that are in the Fog of War, despite the, of course, line of sight problems, which is definitely really useful if you want to know where the enemy defenses and also attacks are coming from. Now we have a second Sherman from Angry Leatherneck. I'm not too keen on the second Sherman. I would have personally gone for a Jackson. Now, it will be good as the Germans don't really have any kind of heavy armor yet, but he doesn't really know that, so he would have definitely been more safe going for a Jackson than a second Sherman, especially as his ally also went for another Sherman. He might be thinking that his own captain and bazooka riflemen are enough to repel any kind of German tanks, but he would be wrong. Now, he went for a rifleman squad and upgraded the riflemen with bazookas. I would have gone for a rear echelon and upgraded the rear echelons with bazookas, as the rear echelons are a much better bazooka unit than the riflemen, because you will lose less anti-infantry firepower by equipping bazookas, and they are also cheaper. So if you're getting a squad just for the purpose of carrying bazookas when you're using paratroopers against infantry, you should just be getting the rear echelons anyway, because you will not be losing anything. Now we do have a American 50 cal over here. When you don't want to be capturing support weapons, as these Germans seem like they don't want to capture the American support weapons that are lying on the ground, you should also just, in alternative, just salvage the support weapon for the extra fuel and to deny to the enemy. The only thing you don't want to be doing with support weapons is you don't want to be leaving them to the enemy in the open, in the same place where they were. So you should be trying to steal them or salvage them. We do have an M8A1 being built by Angry Leatherneck. I don't necessarily agree with the M8A1, but he could be making it into a nice sort of a medium-range artillery piece, which could help out against the German entrenchments on both sides of the map. We do also have an M8A1 being built by Grunt, so this is kind of interesting play. They might actually be coordinating each other through some kind of voice chat. Now we do have a time-on-target artillery barrage being called into the second battle group headquarters. It will wipe the support gun and any kind of veterans that it accrued. We also have pretty much 40% HP damage on the battle group headquarters, but he will be able to repair it with his storm piles. Now the Sherman is taking a lot of damage, and it will be forced to retreat. Again, the Sherman, very good tank against infantry, but a kind of a pretty squishy vehicle for the Americans. Now, the two Shermans in the south are actually not equipping HE rounds, which is definitely a bad choice against all this infantry for the Germans. So we will see if the Angry Leatherneck does realize that he can do that with his own Shermans. It would definitely be important to do that in the future. VP situation is still pretty much even for both sides. We do have a priest being called in by Grunt. So Grunt does have, he did decide to ditch the M8A1 for the priest, which is in my opinion the superior choice, as his ally was already going for an M8A1. And the priest is much better against these structures anyway. So we'll see if the priest can do a lot of damage against all this Wehrmacht grouping. We do have a nice shot. First shot going to be dealing 4 kills, I believe. Yes, 4 kills in the first barrage, it seems so far. More kills coming down. Very good usage of the first barrage. The first barrage of artillery pieces is always the most devastating, as of course the enemy doesn't realize it's coming, so you definitely want to make it count. You have a paratrooper assault on the Storm Pioneers. You will probably be able to at least wipe out one squad. One of the paratroopers also getting wiped though, and the other 2 squads have been forced to retreat with pretty much no HP. You have a huge anti-infantry just Terminator horde of Fallschirmjägers and Obersoldaten going to be wiping out the paratroopers, but also one of the Fallschirmjägers getting wiped. So a lot of very high-profile units biting the dust for both sides. That was definitely a costly engagement for both sides. Germans losing one Sturmpile and one Fallschirmjäger, and the Americans losing 2 paratroopers. So a pretty even trade for both sides, but I do believe that in general it will favor the Germans in terms of a trade, because the Germans will be able to deal without the Storm Pioneers better than the Americans will be able to deal without the paratroopers. Now we do have double Sherman in the south, still kind of running amok. Again, if the HE rounds were equipped, they would be even more dangerous against pretty much everything except the Schwer Panzer Quarters. Now we do have another Panzer IV being built by Bill. Now I don't agree with this. I would definitely go for a King Tiger at this point in the game, because really the main problem of the fact that you're going for Panzer IVs is the fact that, well, you really don't want to be over-investing into medium tanks that will not be too useful in the late game if the enemy gets a lot of anti-tank like Jacksons, which the Americans haven't done yet, but they will be doing fairly soon. Anyway, now we do have a excellent zeroing artillery dealing a lot of damage to Sherman, and as you can see, the zeroing artillery is always very devastating, forcing to retreat this entire blob of American units and destroying a Sherman along with the Raketenwerfer in this house. This Raketenwerfer has got 3 kills, 2 Stuarts, and a Sherman, even though the Sherman was finished off by the artillery, so it doesn't really show. It's also got 2 friendlies killed somehow. How does a Raketenwerfer manage to kill 2 friendlies is beyond me. I really have no idea. But still, again, not really salvaging the Rex is definitely a big mistake. There's 5 Rex on the field right now for both areas. I do believe you can also salvage this. I'm not sure, though. You might be able to salvage this flak replacement ruin, I guess. Ooh, that's a bad loss for Pop-Tarts. He was starting to build up a force. Looks like he lost 2 Volksgrenadier squads in this engagement to this Rifleman Horde, and the Rifleman Horde also managing to pick up the Panzerschreck that the Volksgrenadiers dropped on the ground, so that is definitely not too good for them. Now, we do have a couple of Shermans pushing up in the center, which is, well, it could be good for the Allies as they have managed to keep this VP situation fairly stable. Both sides are pretty much half VP count. Now, yeah, there's pretty much 5 wrecks on the field that the OKW could be salvaging. 5 wrecks is 12 fuel apiece for 5, so that is 60 fuel. So you definitely want to salvage those wrecks as soon as possible. So what could both sides be doing differently now? Pop-Tarts should definitely start to get a King Tiger as soon as possible, because he sees that the Americans are going for a lot of Shermans and also a lot of artillery. So hunkering down in this area with a lot of defensive emplacements is definitely not the best decision. You do have a Stuka being built by Bill, dealing 11 kills in its first barrage. It was a little bit of a blind barrage, I believe supported only by the infrared half-track, giving intel to the Germans. So that was a really nice first shot, but we do have the Shermans pushing up against the Stuka, but we do have the Panzer IV ready to assist. The Panzer IV will be outmatched by the double Shermans, one with Vet 1 getting a defensive bonus. Now Vet 2 though, so that was a really good push by Angry Levernick. He should definitely go also try to get out the Stuka. He knows where the Stuka is, so once he repairs the Shermans, he should definitely start to get preparing for a push against the Stuka, as if the Allies leave these Stukas to their business, he will deal a lot of damage to their infantry, which is very much blob style. One issue for the Allies is that they're blobbing too much, of course. Should definitely start to blob less, as also start to do less blobber streets like these. Once you see, once you have all your units selected and you see that there's one that's taking a lot of damage, one thing that you can do is press tab. As you can see, look at what's doing. It just keeps switching. That's because I'm pressing tab. So you press tab a whole bunch, and you press tab and T when you're selecting a unit that needs to retreat, and that is the way you retreat a single unit in a whole blob. That's pretty much the best way to do it without requiring too much micro. So we do have the priest still dealing a lot of damage and molesting all our kids. Pretty much use the creeping barrage. It's going to be very good against buildings and not too much against units, so that's not what I would use the creeping barrage for. He's using it against units. because the creeping barrage, in case you don't know, is a 50 munitions ability that pretty much fires barrage of shells in a line. So what you want to do is line it up pretty much abreast with the building. So you want to hit it pretty much with all the shells, and you can do a lot of damage against OKW structures that way. You one-shot most of them if you're lucky, but even if you don't one-shot it, you can pretty much at least 80% of the HP with the creeping barrage, so it is a very good tool for the Americans. You have a second priest actually out on the field by Grunt. I myself would have gone for Jackson. Again, Jackson's our king for the Americans. You have the Stuka firing a second barrage, dealing a lot of damage still, 7 kills against the American blob, and it doesn't look like any squads went down, but still, the Americans really cannot afford to reinforce all these units forever. Now, one more Cannon is going to go down up here, and the Americans will definitely attempt to steal it as soon as possible, especially because their Cannon with their retreat function are pretty easy to steal. Now we have the 2 Sherman push against the Stuka, 1 lieutenant going down along with another paratrooper squad, and then 2 rifling squads going down for Angry Leverneck. So he will lose a lot in this push, but he will also be able to destroy the Stuka. 1 Sherman is in very much big trouble. She's definitely try to retreat as soon as possible and using the smoke barrage, but a Panzerfaust from the Fallschirmjägers will deal a lot of engine damage against it, and will pretty much... Ooh! We do have an abandon, so the Stern Pioneers will definitely be able to repair this Sherman and use it against the Americans, unless they can bring in some kind of unit to assist and destroy the wreckage before the Germans can make use of it. So it looks like a Sherman and a captain will be assigned to this mission, and it will probably be fairly easy for the Americans to destroy the wreckage. Now, how is the game developing? The Americans are starting to make a lot of blunders, especially this push, resulting in a lot of losses, but they still do have the advantage in terms of units and also map control, so they definitely need to be continuing to put the pressure on the Germans, especially in ways like these. Dealing a lot of damage to the structures is definitely the way to go forward for the Americans, as the structures are the ones that are keeping the Germans anchored at these 2 positions, both at the south VP, which is keeping them in the VP game, and at the north fuel point, which is keeping them in the resource game. Now we do have a Panther on the field for Pop-Tarts. We decided to not go for the King Tiger, but to go for a lot of Panthers thanks to his 450 fuel, which could be good, as the Americans aren't getting any kind of Jacksons. So the Shermans are going to be pretty much a nice meal for the cat over here, the Panther. We do have a second Stuka on the field for Bill, which is a good decision, as the first Stuka was already doing very well against the American units. Now, we do have the Schwer Panzer Recorders going down from the Sherman push, so that was a really good push from the Shermans, and a nice nice little coup for them. So this will allow them to deal a lot more damage against the Germans in terms of VPs, as they will be able to capture the south. Now, the Panther will pretty much say no to that, at least for the flak half track. The flak half track will probably go down, and I won't even look at it. Just so obvious that it's going to go down. No, whatever. Yeah, it goes down. Captain going to be pushing back against the Panther. Angry Leverneck is pretty much out of units. He's going to rebuild one of his riflemen, but he also should definitely work on his unit preservation as much as possible. Pop-Tarts, again, has lost most of his Volksgrenadiers, so I do believe we're at like 6 losses. No, 4 Volksgrenadiers and 5 Stern Pioneers. But it looks like he will be using his machine guns to good effect against the American blob, along with the support guns, going to be supporting the defensive line, of course. So should definitely push up with the machine gun, especially now that there's a time on target barrage being called down. Don't want to be losing that by 2. Looks like he isn't paying attention. He's mostly microing his Panther, maybe. We do have a nice push, actually, by Bill, but I don't think this will be destined to succeed. A bundle grenade over here against this little concentration of Americans would be really good. We do have a huge amount of kills, but the Americans are also still just surviving through sheer numbers, and also the reinforcement from the ambulance, so they will be able to win out the engagement and wiping out 2 German squads and miraculously surviving that. Looks like a priest also going down from the Panther push. So this was a nice push from the Panther. This is definitely a little bit too ballsy of a maneuver. He will be taking a anti-tank rifle grenade. No, very lucky for Pop-Tarts that Grunt didn't go for an anti-tank rifle grenade. to destroy the engine of the Panther, which would have definitely led to destruction in the middle of this huge blob of American units. You'll have the Stuka barrage going to be destroying the ambulance, so that is a good pickup for the Germans. The Germans also gained the VP lead and pushing the Americans down to 200, so they're starting to get a little bit of a foothold back into this game, thanks to some nice wipes on the blob of Grunt, who definitely needs to be playing a lot more carefully with his units, because, well, again, they want to be losing all those. Now, decent usage of the Stewart crew actually going to be popping out of the vehicle and capturing the VP, but really not sure why he would go for a Stewart at this point in the game. I would have definitely gone for a Jackson if I was him, especially now that he sees that there is a Panther on the field. Now, we do also have the fact that the Stewart is suiciding, and the Panther will easily be able to destroy it. In fact, even the sure, Panther quarters will be able to destroy it. Now, we do have a P-47 rocket strike being called in by Angry Leverneck, but it will be useless as you can see, if I can switch over to the Allies side, right now they cannot see the Panther. Well, actually, yeah, they can see the Panther from the defensive amount of machine gun firing at the planes, but if there wasn't the machine gun firing at the planes, then the planes would actually not make any kind of passage runs against the Panther, as basically they can only target things that they see on the fog of war, rather off the fog of war. So it would have been fairly useless of a strike without anything to follow up, but yeah, the Pintle Mounted machine gun did kind of help. Of course, the blob of the Americans still needs to spread out a little bit to avoid getting suppressed so much by new machine guns, and also to avoid getting destroyed so much by German artillery like the Stuka, which the second Stuka is only up to 1 kill, but the other one had about 20 kills, so that is very devastating for the Germans. Now, the Priest is almost done in destroying this battle group of quarters, but we do also have a nice push by the Americans, going to be pretty much massacred by the Schwer Panzer quarters, and we will also have a zeroing artillery being called down. That was perhaps a little bit too premature of a usage of that ability. Zeroing artillery is much better against defensive positions, so when you are on the offensive, when you're attacking, you want to be using this on the enemy defenses. Perhaps a position like this one would be excellent to use zeroing artillery against, if you can keep the line of sight on the area. Just like the airstrike cannot hit anything that is not in your line of sight, also the zeroing artillery cannot hit anything that is not in your line of sight. Of course, though, if you're targeting your zeroing artillery on a blob that is going to retreat anyway, it's pretty much just a waste of 300 munitions. Now, nice bundle grenade, going to be destroying this house. And another flak half-track being called in by Angry Leverneck. What is this, like the third flak half-track? No, the second one. Definitely not the best decision to go for one so late, as it is so easy to destroy. Now, you also have 2 Luxes out by Bill, same as the flak half-track. I don't really agree, and also as the Stewart Grunt. Don't really agree with that. Too easy to destroy at this point in the game. Now, we do also have 33 kills on the Priest, so it's definitely being rivaling at least the Stuka, if not even surpassing it. Good usage of that by Grunt, but he should have perhaps been doing a little bit more of feasting and a little bit less of stewarding, which might have led to a lot more American successes in the north, as the Germans are very hunkered down at this point in this area. It will be very hard for the Americans to dislodge them from this position. Now, one big advantage that the Germans have is the fact that in the later parts of the game, if they can manage to get out a lot of heavy armor, and the Germans or the Allies cannot counter it, as the Allies are not doing, then they will start to inflict a lot of losses on the Americans, especially Americans rather than Soviets or British, as the Americans do definitely take a lot more manpower bleeding, because the riflemen are 28 manpower to reinforce a piece. So once you get out a King Tiger that can deal 3 or 4 casualties per shot and shoot once every 5 seconds, as you can see, it is very devastating. Now, because of this, as you can see, the Americans are starting to have a lot of manpower deficits. They have very little manpower to actually use their fuel, which is also the case for Pop-Tarts, but that is mostly because Pop-Tarts has been playing a little bit too recklessly with his infantry units. If he wouldn't have been playing so recklessly with his Volksgrenadiers, and also if he wouldn't have been under so much artillery fire from Grunt, he would be in a much better shape. Now, he does look like he's saving up a little bit, but he might be going for a second Panther anyway, which could be a good choice to hunt down the Priest, because 2 Panthers will be much more effective than 1 Panther. Of course, because of the fact that even if one takes an engine damage, the second one can still move up and destroy the artillery. Now, Obersudan being wiped by the huge American blob. Huge American blob also going to be doing a lot of damage against this Volksrainier. Volksrainier with no veterancy, picking up a MG34. Should definitely retreat as soon as possible with that weapon. No, that is very unlucky. Should definitely work on the unit preservation again. So we do have a little bit of a lull in the fighting. I'm gonna speed it up. What is this Sherman doing? 2 Shermans actually pushing up against the Luxes, and also the Stuka, it looks like. Stuka going down from Fort Bill. So really good pushes by Angry Leverneck with his Shermans, but that's pretty much the only thing that he's been doing well, which is pretty much the problem for him and this team, is the fact that he's been wasting a little bit too many units. Grunt, while he has been blobbing and taking a lot of losses, he hasn't really wasted any full units. So he has managed to conserve a big army with a lot of veterancy under his belt. Now again, Pop-Tarts does have the resources for a King Tiger. In fact, in terms of fuel, he has the resources for 2 King Tigers. So I would definitely be going for a mechanized veteran headquarters and a King Tiger as soon as possible. Now the ambulance is going to go down from the secondary push from Bill. So that was a good push. Also, the Panther from the center, or rather the north, pushing up and taking a lot of damage, but still fairly healthy, and especially the engine is not dead. Now we do have 3 Shermans on the field from Angry Leverneck. Again, Jackson's would be so good at this moment for him, and also repairing his tanks would be really good as well. This Sherman has 25 kills, you definitely don't want to lose it at all to anything. Because as it stands right now, with half HP, a American River Shot plus a Panther Shot will destroy it fairly effortlessly. Now, the Germans do have a VP lead, but this will not last too long as the Americans do manage to capture the center. We do have an airborne assault from Bill. Will probably be repulsed by the huge blob of American infantry without any real damage done to the American forces. So that is again kind of a waste. Now, a third Lux being built by Bill, I definitely don't agree with this. He will be dealing a lot of damage with these Luxes against the American infantry, but if the American infantry is supported by Shermans especially, then the Luxes will not be able to do much against the, the superior medium armor, which is kind of funny to say of the Americans, as they usually have superior medium armor. Now, an SMP-47 rocket strike is going to be called in on the Luxes, again, a little bit of waste of munitions, as the Luxes will not be under the line of sight of the Americans forever, and they will be able to easily escape the area of the strike. Sherman's pushing up on the left. He will be dealing a little bit of damage against the German positions over here, but you are kind of for that is Vet 4 will definitely be very scary for the Shermans. Should definitely reposition though as soon as possible. Now Vet 5, we don't want to be losing that. Looks like this one Vet 3 Sherman will be going a little bit too close. Again, really not sure why he isn't going for HE rounds at all. Now, we're kind of for going down, and also there is a Schwer Panzer Recorder being built by Bill. Should definitely be targeting the Shermans against the Schwer Panzer Recorder as soon as possible to destroy this one first, and then the other buildings can wait, because these ones aren't running away nor completing anytime soon. Now, it does look like these 2 Shermans will be easily able to destroy the Schwer Panzer Headquarters, and the Mechanized Regiment Headquarters also taking a lot of damage. Will probably go down, as there aren't really any German units over here to answer against this Sherman attack. So no counterattack against this is a very bad sign for the Germans, as they're pretty much starting to lose the initiative. We finally have the Panther from Pop-Tarts, which is being repaired in the base, finally ready to go, pretty much full HP. We'll definitely be able to push back the Shermans, but it's a little bit too late. The Shermans pretty much did what they came here to do, which is destroy all the buildings, so they will be able to easily retreat. Now, one of the Shermans should actually definitely be trying to use some of these 2-inch smoke bombs to just avoid. Is it 2 inches? What is that symbol? I'm actually not sure. The Panther should definitely be able to win the fight against the Shermans. Not if he gets unlucky though and takes a lot of front armor penetrations, but it does look like one Sherman will be going down. So a good play by Pop-Tarts. But again, I really don't see why he isn't going for a King Tiger. He did go for the battle group, rather the mechanized regiment, so he might actually be going for King Tiger just now. Now the two Luxes are trying to make a push against the huge American blob over here in the center, rather in the north, but the huge American blob does have bazookas, so he will be able to defend himself fairly easily against the Luxes. Now the Lukes will also be taking a little bit of damage from the 50 cal of the Priest, but the Priest is also taking a lot of damage against from the Lukes from the back. Priest not exactly the most well-armored vehicle. Now the Lukes will be going down in the base and being abandoned is definitely not a good sign for the Germans, as that can be recruited fairly easily by the Americans. Now, second Sherman going down, looks like he tried to chase down the Panther. Panther escaping with a sliver of HP, but also destroying a second Sherman, and it does look like also the vet-free Sherman going down, so that is really bad for Angry Leverneck. He's pretty much lost his entire Sherman force. He will be rebuilding some Shermans, but the vet-free one will be a very sore loss for him. Now, Priest still dealing a lot of damage against the German structures over here. The King Tiger will be on the field soon, though, and I do believe that King Tiger will be the nail in the coffin for the Allies. The Allies do only have 84 VPs left on the field, so they will definitely need to push up as quickly as possible to avoid the Germans recovering from these little bit of a shock that the Allies gave them with these pushes. Of course, the Allies made a little bit of a nice shock maneuver with the pushes, but they were also taking a lot of damage in the meantime. They've lost a little bit of infantry, but especially the free Shermans, which were their main striking force for attacking. Yeah, that is not a good situation for the Allies to be in, especially if Pop-Tarts manages to get out of King Tiger, which it does look like he will be able to just now. We'll see if he does decide to go for that. Yep, we do have the Königstiger with a nice skin. Is that the new Valkyrie Chronicle skin? Yeah, I do believe that is it. Is that a Romanov Eagle? I know it isn't, but it looks a lot like a Russian Eagle. Yeah, it's the two-headed Romanov Eagle, pretty much. Oh well, kind of a cool skin actually, with the sort of a brick color. It's very nice. Now, the South is firmly under the control of the Americans after the sort of defensive hunkering down of Bill was defeated from the Americans. Now, we do have a airborne assault being called in. Will not be too successful with all these American units over here. So this is definitely not the best time to be the Americans, as the King Tiger will be dealing a lot of damage to the American infantry. And there aren't really any counters to it. The Shermans can try a flanking maneuver. From the back, the Sherman main gun is usually able to reliably penetrate the rear armor of the King Tiger. But again, the problem is getting behind the King Tiger and living to tell the tale. Now, one big problem for the King Tiger is the fact that it's very slow and there aren't really many German infantry units available to support it. The battle group headquarters did go down for Pop-Tarts for breakfast in the north, and he should not be rebuilding it in the same spot as the other one was. He should be rebuilding it over here, so that it is a little bit slightly out of range of the priests. Now, the King Tiger is taking a little bit of damage from the Sherman, but the Sherman also taking a huge amount of damage from the Mecklenburg and the King Tiger, so yes, this will be a very bad loss for the Americans. The second Sherman is, I don't know where, he's trying to make a flanking maneuver from the south, but he will also run into a little bit of trouble, and this trouble is called 88mm cannon from the King Tiger, so he will be pretty much forced to retreat as soon as possible. As you can see, it's being spotted by the infrared half-track as it retreats. So the Germans are actually taking a lot of VP damage, as the Allies do have the triple cap VP under their belt. Now, the King Tiger should definitely not be playing this defensively against these infantry forces, as it will take a lot of damage if it tanks the shots of the bazookas, but he will also be able to deal a huge amount of damage to the Allied blob and pretty much force it to retreat as soon as possible. Now, the Sherman should definitely be ignored at this moment, actually. The King Tiger wisely actually backing a little bit away, but he will be body blocked by the Sherman, and the American infantry is trying to make a flanking maneuver from the north. Now, of course, the Sherman going down from the Raketenwerfer is definitely not good for the American forces, but they will attempt to make one last hurrah destroying the King Tiger, but it doesn't look like the King Tiger will live to tell the tale and deal a huge amount of damage against the Americans. 12 kills already on it after a couple of minutes of play. And the main problem right now is the fact that the Germans have a minute and a half to get a VP, or else they will die. They will just die because 1 VP per second is about the rate at which a triple cap will take your VPs down. Now, this little bit of a grouping in the center is definitely one good chance that the Germans have to capture the center VP. They should definitely be moving in as soon as possible to capture the center VP, and also moving in one of the units to capture the south VP and one of the units to capture the center VP, and also trying to, even using the machine gun in the north to try to capture the north. They need to do whatever possible to capture any kind of VP before the Allies do try to capture, rather, to try to win the VP. Now, one of the Fox Ranger squads is able to secure the south. We do have a few American units trying to come in and rectify the situation for the USF. There is a Panther in the south, but there is also finally a Jackson on here from Angry Leverneck. And also there's the fact that the Panther is not too useful against this infantry force. Now, the Jackson will be very good against the King Tiger. We do have a second Jackson in production from Angry Leverneck. One big problem for the Americans is the fact that they're playing 2 1v1s, whereas the Germans are playing a 2v2. And what I mean by that is the fact that Angry Leverneck is always 100% in the south, and as you can see, as soon as I say that, send a unit to the south, and proves me wrong, but still. Throughout the entire game, Grunt was focusing entirely on the north, and Angry Leverneck entirely on the south, whereas the Germans were helping out each other pretty much since minute 1. So that is one big factor as to why the Americans are starting to lose a lot in the mid and late game. So it does look like it is 2 Fallschirmjäger squads rather than 1 Fallschirmjäger and 1 with 5 Sturmpioneer with 50 kills. We'll be able to recapture the southern VP for the Germans, and also a Sturmpioneer is capturing the center. This is definitely a mistake. You should be staying in the capture circle and finishing the capture instead of going and suiciding against this American infantry force. Now, the Panther is taking a lot of damage from the Jacksons and is going to be forced to retreat, but the Jackson is going to run into a wall of Raketenwerfers, and it will definitely be really bad thing for the Raketenwerfer, under the Jackson Raketenwerfer destroying it. In the center, we do have a capture, 7 VPs left for the Germans, and the Sturmpioneers do manage to capture the center, and the south point is nuked, so we do have a nice, even little bit of distribution. We also have the Germans capturing the north of the Volkstrainier squad as the Americans capture the center. So we do looks like he will have a exchange, pretty equal exchange in the north as well. Now, the King Tiger is finally repaired, and he will push up in the north to destroy the Sherman that's been harassing his own Volksgrenadiers this entire time that they're capping, and this will be pretty much successful. The Sherman needs to retreat or else it will die fairly soon. Now, the Priest is definitely a good unit against the King Tiger. You may think this is weird, but hear me out. If you can destroy the engine of the King Tiger and you can call down a Priest barrage exactly where it is, the Priest will actually be kind of accurate enough to hit the King Tiger directly, and once it hits the King Tiger directly, it pretty much deals something like 20% of the HP per shot in terms of damage. So the Priest is actually a fairly dangerous thing for the King Tiger to have against. That is, of course, if the King Tiger manages to get its own engine destroyed, which is not happening so far. Now, standing in the area of the strike is definitely not the best decision for the King Tiger's life style, but we will see if that is rectified anytime soon. Doesn't look like it, as another pass comes down. We do have an MG34 defending the south from Pop-Tarts, which is definitely really good at saving the Germans right now, because if not for this MG34 right now, the American units would definitely at least decap the southern VP. We do have 2 VPs to 1 for the Allies. The King Tiger is trying to make the push in the north to recapture the north. 5 VPs, 3 VPs. I do believe that he will be able to capture or rather at least neutralize the northern VP if the Priest doesn't wipe out these squads. 1 VP, and very lucky to actually capture the point at exactly 1 hour and 1 minute. Pretty much the Germans will be saving their own life, but just by a hair, really. And I don't think that the Allies actually have the forces to push back and try to recapture in one last hurrah, 1 VP long enough to get the victory. So yeah, I do believe this is over. So very nice game. What could all the sides have done differently? Now, the Americans definitely blobbing less. Grunt11171, whatever the fuck his name is, he played fairly decently with his blob, but it was still a blob, so he still had to blob retreat, take a lot of damage from artillery, and just in general only things that blobs will punish you for. So if you wouldn't have gone for the blobs, and as you can see, the priest just hit the King Tiger and dealt a fair amount of damage with a shot, direct hit. Again, without the insane blobbing, he would have definitely had a lot more success with his infantry, and perhaps a little bit less usage of time on target against mobile targets, which is also a problem for Pop-Tarts. He's zeroing artillery too much on mobile targets like blobs that could just retreat out of the way instead of actual defensive positions that do not really have that option. Now, Angry Leverneck, definitely too many Shermans, and also Grunt1171 going for Jackson's too late. Angry Leverneck also going for Jackson's too late. It would have definitely done a lot better against the Panthers if they would have gone for Jackson's earlier. Another problem that they did go for is the fact that Angry Leverneck wasted a lot of manpower on paratroopers that he didn't really micro-alter correctly. Other than that, that's pretty much it for the Americans. Also, well, of course, playing two 1v1s, two separate 1v1s instead of a 2v2, which is a bit of a huge problem for random teams and also inexperienced arranged teams, so that can definitely happen. What could the Germans have done differently? Definitely Pop-Tarts for breakfast. His main problem was unit preservation and also going for the King Tiger a little bit too late. I do believe a King Tiger earlier would have definitely sealed the deal a lot earlier. Now, Bill? Bill going for too many Fallschirmjägers and also mixing up too many Sturm Pioneers, Fallschirmjägers, and Obersoldaten together. You definitely want to be going for at least, well, only one of those units, unless you, of course, need a lot of Sturm Pioneers to repair. In that case, you can get a lot of Sturm Pioneers anyway. You only want to be going for one of each of one of Fallschirmjägers or a lot of Obersoldaten. You don't want to be going for both at the same time. Because the Fallschirmjägers, their strength is the fact that they can deploy off buildings and they have camouflage, and they don't need an upgrade with because the Obersoldaten need the 90 munitions LMG, or maybe the 60 munitions LMG. But the Obersoldaten need less manpower, and they're also superior in long range. So that is why you want to get either or want to specialize. And yeah, other than that, really not much to be said about Bill. Well, maybe it shouldn't have gone for 2 Luxes at like 40 minutes of the game now. The Panther in the base gonna be dealing with the two priests, and definitely one big problem that the Americans also did have is the fact that they never used the anti-tank rifle grenades when the enemy was pretty much on top of them and could have easily been de-engined with a well-placed grenade. And yeah, I do believe this is over from VPs. Nice triple cap, gonna be ending the game nice and quick. So that was an hour and 5 minutes. So I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something from this cast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.